Now, I'm called to duty tonight to do something that makes me extremely proud. I get to do the presentation of the Hillman Broadcast Prize to Brian Ross, Rhonda Schwartz, Matthew Mosk, and Cindy Gailey for ABC News. Right now, the world's conscience is focused on the most recent tragic garment factory building collapse in Bangladesh on April 24th, where more than 700 garment workers are now confirmed dead and still hundreds more are missing. But that wasn't the case when tonight's broadcast prize winners began their investigation into the plight of people who work and die in factories far from the eyes of American consumers, making the lowest wages in the world. Investigative producers Matt Mosk, Cindy Gailey, and Rhonda Schwartz for Brian Ross's investigative unit found a pattern of grossly negligent safety practices that have resulted in the death of more than 500 Bangladeshi garment workers in fires and building collapses in the past few years. The team found proof that workers sewing Tommy Hilfiger's clothes were deliberately locked in factories that caught fire. 29 workers died trapped inside, and many more jumped to their deaths because the factory had no fire escape. Ross confronted Hilfiger, who denied that his clothes were made in Bangladesh, but later admitted to Ross that some of his clothes were indeed made there. There's that little tag thing that kind of gives it away. The story led to real change. Hilfiger and his parent company, Philip Van Heusen, pledged a historic $2 million to improve fire safety conditions in dozens of factories in Bangladesh. But the tragedies continued when an even worse fire at the Tazreen factory broke out 6 months later, claiming more than 100 lives. The investigative team again documented the locked doors and lack of fire escapes. Workers jumped to their deaths or suffocated inside. The team worked with workers' rights groups and factory workers to document the labels of clothes made at the factory in order to expose the link between U.S. retailers and the appalling conditions under which their clothes are made. We must realize that both the producers and the garment workers put themselves in danger to report these stories, and they kept on it, publishing 9 print and 2 additional video stories on ABC's investigative website, The Blotter. Brian Ross and Rhonda Schwartz actually won a Hillman Award in 1992 for an NBC Dateline report on Walmart, and we commend them for continuing to expose the harmful effect of corporate greed, for staying on this story for quite literally years, and helping bring these garment workers' voices across the world. We proudly honor Brian Ross and his team with the Hillman Prize in Broadcast Journalism. Brian Ross.
On behalf of the team, thank you very much. We're joined up here by Randy Kreider and Rim Montaz, who helped invaluably in this production of this piece, including being with me when we were ordered out of Fashion Week, which was a first for us. We started with the premise, as Scott Nova said, that sewing garments is not and should not be an inherently dangerous job. No one should have to die making clothes, but in Bangladesh they do, and they have for years, under terrible conditions, tolerated by American manufacturers who are attracted by the lowest wages in the world, and again they take their clothes there to be made and somehow seem to miss locked gates and awful conditions. Our hearts break for the people in Bangladesh, for the workers, and we are outraged by the conditions and really empowered by the thought that we can do something to make it better. Rhonda and I won this award some 20 years ago, working on a story that involved Walmart in Bangladesh. In that case, the chairman of the CEO of Walmart sat down and walked out of the interview when I showed him pictures of the workers who had died at one of the factories making clothes for his giant company. He later told me, well, with those people, they look younger than they really are, and trying to explain why 12-year-olds were making clothes. It turns out one of the children we found in the Walmart factories back in 1992 was one of the labor advocates who helped us with this story. And for me, it was an outrage that we were still doing the same story 20 years later, that deaths after death did nothing to change the approach of American companies who continued to be flocked to Bangladesh to make their clothes under these appalling conditions. In this case, we focused on Tommy Hilfiger, as you saw in this story. Labor advocates showed us the evidence again and again that Hilfiger's clothes were being made there, and when he first tried to deny it, we really thought something was strange. He showed up for the second interview to set the record straight, as he put it, in a chauffeur-driven Rolls-Royce to explain why he had so far given such a small amount to help the Workers' Fund. That attention on World News and Nightline changed a lot for him, and he changed around. His company now actually leads the way in what they're doing in trying to make things better. So hats off to Tommy Hilfiger. And I also say hats off to my bosses, our bosses at ABC News, who have encouraged us to stay on this story, given us the resources to send people to Bangladesh, to have the airtime, to expose the intolerable conditions, and to some way try to seek justice for the people of Bangladesh. And this award means a great deal to all of us. And thank you very much.